And joining us in our conversation is Pierre Cyr. He's the NDP candidate for Tobique-Mactaquac in New Brunswick, and he joins us via Skype from his home in Grand Falls. Pierre, obviously this is just a series of conversations that you and I are having with about policy, basically, in NDP in this 2011 federal election. Let's first talk about the coalition. And I know that on your website, you were talking about how you actually posted something on your website about how in 1997 and in 2004, Stephen Harper seemed supportive of a coalition with the other parties. Can you talk to a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, definitely. And I'm surprised the Liberals aren't running with this, because the Liberals came out before the election saying they will have nothing to do with a coalition. They simply took it off the table, which is surprising, because when Stephen Harper, in his own words, gives this kind of ammunition out there for political parties to use to show that he's in contradiction, what he's stating now about coalitions being unstable and undemocratic and essentially demonizing the process, even though it's widely used in the Western world and in the British parliamentary tradition. I mean, we have a coalition in Britain between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats. You have them under the Australians with their new proportional system. France and Germany, also very common, and those are all also very stable democracies, stable economies. I'm surprised at that notion. So that's why I think that, from my point of view as a candidate, to use this as pretty much the number one issue, since Stephen Harper came out slugging with this issue as his number one issue, to simply demonize the notion that there could possibly be an evil or unstable coalition in power after the election is something I want to clear the air about. Definitely in 1997, as we've referenced on the webpage with an interview with TVO Ontario, he plainly states, should the Liberals win an election with a plurality of seats, but have fewer seats than a majority, the opposing parties could form a coalition and go to the Governor General and offer themselves as a government. Now, that's a stunning thing for him to say, and then turn around years later in 2004, in 2006, right, to 2008 rather, when he demonized the notion of a coalition with Stéphane Dion and Jack Layton, which didn't include the Bloc, by the way. It was a coalition purely between the Liberals and the New Democrats, with the Bloc supporting it, but with no commitment to support. That this contradiction would be allowed to stand in the eyes of the public, and that I'm personally a bit offended by that. And I've even talked to the Liberal candidate here in Grand Falls, and he was stunned. He didn't know about the TVO interview. I just sent him the link a couple of days ago. So there's not even an education of Liberal candidates on that issue to show that Stephen Harper is completely contradicting himself. Terry Milewski did a huge article on CBC. It came out on the National, and still neither the NDP officially so far and the Liberal Party have come out slugging with saying, listen, Mr. Harper, there's nothing wrong with the issue of coalitions. Why can't you just deal with the real issues of the campaign and put that to rest? If there's a coalition, there's a coalition. If there isn't, there isn't. You supported one at one point. Why do you not support one now?
How does that? I mean, how does that speak to his integrity? I mean, like, what does that say to the Canadian people? I mean, like, he's supportive of coalition, and then now he's not supportive of coalition.
Well, he's being pragmatic for his own cause, right? If he was the leader of the coalition, he'd probably not have a problem with it. Being that he's the possible victim of a coalition that unseats him out of power, then it's the worst thing in the world. It's sad from a person who came into Ottawa with the Reform Party, claiming they were going to clean up all these kinds of shenanigans, and simply put in a new, straight-talking government, honest, transparent, accountable, and we've had anything but. We have just another party that's interested in maintaining power at all costs, which is what this Stephen Harper's going back on his own ideas and his own sayings in the recent past is all about. That's the only way to try to interpret that, in my opinion.
Okay, well, how about the fact that the both the Liberals and the National NDP haven't really jumped on this? What do you think is the reason behind this?
Right. Well, I think that a lot of it has to do with money. The fact that the Conservatives have so much money in their war chests, and they can use that outside of elections, because outside of elections there's no limit on spending. Whereas during an election, each party is limited to $26 million of national advertising. That they can't take them on the issue because they're afraid they can't reach the public on it. That's the one argument I think that the Liberals it was the reason why the Liberals caved in on the coalition and why Michael Ignatieff took it off the table. The NDP, of course, hasn't always been open to the idea of coalition, but why isn't it also attacking vociferously the issue? Well, maybe because they're afraid that they want to manage their free airtime and the available airtime they have with the money they have to spend during the election, which won't be there outside of the election because they don't have that kind of Chamber of Commerce, Bay Street, corporate boardroom high level of donations that the Conservatives have that keep filling their own war chest with a far greater amount of money than they're legally allowed to spend during an election. They're allowed, like I said, $26 million, but I've heard rumors that the Conservative war chests are upwards of $200 million.
So moving on. So how do you see this is going to play out? Are we going to end up with at the end of this election? Are we going to end up with another minority government? Do you foresee the chance of maybe a coalition government being formed at the end of the election process?
That's a big question. Michael Ignatieff at one point said, if necessary, a coalition, but not necessarily a coalition. If he doesn't win a plurality of seats, rather, if he becomes in second after Stephen Harper, and Stephen Harper is a minority government again, will he try to form a coalition with the NDP if they gain more seats than the Conservatives? That remains to be seen. I honestly don't know. I don't think I could ask that of Jack Layton. I don't think he could answer me. And although like I said, he's open to working with both Conservatives and Liberals as long as they are willing to concede policies and legislation for the issues that the NDP cares about, the progressive policies we care about.
All right.
So,
well, we're out of time, Pierre, but basically we'll be having more conversations about this in the future, I'm sure. Pierre Cyr is the NDP candidate for Tobique-Mactaquac, and he lives in Grand Falls, New Brunswick.